So bad news, guys. PFT could not make it this week. Something came up. We have Ryan Grimm, and we're going to ask him the exact same questions. Ryan, is Joe Flacco elite?
Ryan, who do you like?
Ryan, which fan base is worse, the Eagles or the Patriots?
Yeah.
We're going to be talking to Ryan Grimm about his blockbuster article on the Intercept about the mechanisms by which the Democratic Party reproduces a ruling class ideology in how it selects and runs its candidates.
And I'm going to give this article 3 extras.
We're also going to talk about how the Democratic Party just reproduces. How do they fuck? How do they have kids? I want to see that uterus. I want to see those testicles. I want to see those deferens. Show me those sperms, freak.
I guess before we get Ryan on the line, a little bit of a rundown through the headlines. What's been going on this week, guys?
You hear about this?
Folks, you hear about this this Jack Prilosek fellow? Folks, you hear about this? He's on Bumble, even though he got married a week ago.
Yes, Bumble, for those of you who don't know, it's Tinder, but women message you first, which is how you should use any dating app. You should never talk to a woman first. It's for fools. It's how people get jammed up. I'll let a woman talk to me for half an hour before I even give an affirmation that I'm listening to her. That's how true player pimps do it.
I do like the Jack Prilosek story because he of course is denying it. The Bumble app says that the account was linked to his real Facebook page, but he had a great tweet where he said he would get the FBI involved, and he said this fraud stops now. He said these criminals will be swiftly and brutally punished.
I like that he says it's fraud, like someone was using the Jack Prilosek profile to get pussy. It's like, oh, this guy's so fucking cool. I have to pretend to be him. Oh, I want to be the Navy P guy who loves Donald Trump.
Honey, I am going to call the FBI and get to the bottom of all of this, all this lipstick on my collar.
He does that for everything. Actually, I did take the garbage out, but someone George Soros put a fake garbage in.
Yeah, liberals probably do it too. It's like Eric Garland when he gets caught doing something shitty. It's like that is compromat right there. That is some KGB style FSB tactics, and I will get to the bottom of it.
More interesting to me though than his appearance on hookup apps is the fact that I learned this week that Jack Prilosek is also a self-published sci-fi author,
The best kind of sci-fi author.
who wrote under the name Jack Michael Doyle a book called Wade Asher, Agent of Admiralty.
Was his pen name name from True Allegiance that Ben Shapiro threw away?
Yeah.
Agent of Admiralty.
Agent of Admiralty. Jack Michael Doyle. Jack Prilosek has a lot of aliases. Actually, someone should search Bumble and Tinder for Jack Michael Doyle.
That's actually my PUA name.
He describes this book as Blade Runner meets James Bond, but
Cool.
I did purchase a copy for 99 cents. I did purchase a copy of Agent of Admiralty, but even better than that, on the books page where you can buy it on www.smashwords.com.
Yeah, you trying to smash?
He has this incredible author bio that's like as long as the book itself.
What's the description of the book?
The book says Part 1 of the Wade Asher series.
Oh, thank God, there's more.
After his exile from the elite intelligence arms of the after his exile from the elite intelligence arm of the Admiralty, Agent Wade Asher returns to take on a mission at the highest levels. Wade must infiltrate a brutal separatist group in a journey flying high above Centralia City.
He runs into Johnny Five Aces.
And it says, flying high above Centralia City in way rides and diving through the deepest sewers to face
Well, how does he come up with these exotic locales?
to face the nightmarish creatures that lurk beneath the polluted waters. Wade Asher, Agent of Admiralty, is a spy thriller set within the sci-fi world of the Admiralty. in a futuristic city. In a futuristic city where firearm technology was never developed.
What?
In a futuristic city where firearm technology was never developed, blade and axe rule the war-torn land.
No, this is such a goon project. This is the biggest goon project of all time.
This is Michael Scott's screenplay.
Secrets and
Admiral, hand over your cyber axe.
Oh man! Every time a guy resigns, he has to like throw his blade into the admiral's desk.
secrets and twists abound against the colorful backdrop of commerce and government run amok in a dark vision of things that could come.
Oh, I'm so sick of commerce and government run amok when those jackbooted thugs come into my house with their swords and gun blades.
It's Blade Runner meets James Bond. I
I
think Jack watched Blade Runner and thought the title was literal. He's a blade agent, always running. Always running faster than the blades that are after him.
I would consider it more Lego Batman meets Last Samurai.
Can I read a little of his incredibly detailed author bio? It says here about Jack Michael Doyle. Jack Michael Doyle is the American name of John Jack, pronounced Yak. I don't know what John Jack.
Thanks for helping me with that exotic name.
Razovich.
Oh, he's a Polo.
Yeah, born in.
He got kicked out of the Admiralty for his submarine design.
It says born in 1984 from Norrisville, Pennsylvania, a large suburb of Philadelphia.
Well, born in 1984. Good authors have allusions to other books.
Yes.
Oh, I see. He was born on an animal farm in 1984.
He is noted for his criticism of various franchises such as Star Wars, Star Trek, Jimboree, and Game of Thrones.
What? Wait. So his stand-in character is a discus commenter.
Yeah, he's a poster. He's known for his comments in the IMDb message board.
And then
He's known for them. Like in the fucking Navy CIA he works for. They're like, this guy's the best. He has the most upvoted comments about George R.R. Martin, and he's the founder of the Bring Back Jar Jar Binks hashtag. He's founder of the blog Snark Wars.
He's written Yelp reviews of 17 Jimborees across the nation that he's gotten kicked out of.
Jack Prilosek has tweeted about this book to say that, like, buy my old sci-fi book. Maybe it's a joke. Maybe he's...
I mean, if it's satirical, it's like Garth Marenghi. Like, it's hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, this could be an elaborate prank.
I don't get who the prank is on. I guess it's like, I guess these guys love that. I guess, like, Paul Joseph Watson, like, did some interview with Broadly where he's like, yeah, I eat pieces of paper. And then they were like, oh, okay, that's kind of weird. And then he's like, oh, I triggered you. You printed that. I don't actually do it. So these guys do love... It's sort of like the pranks that a toddler does. Where it's like, oh, my head fell off. No, it didn't. Oh, I got you.
I mean, reading it because it's funny either way.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? Should we get Ryan Grimm on the line? Ryan MF Grimm,
Yeah, Ryan F. Grimm.
and
He's
we'll
on.
we'll talk some politics.
Yeah, talk politics. We're going to talk the Super Bowl.
We're gonna talk. Yeah, we're gonna give you all the betting lines.
One of the replies to Jack Prilosek about his book is, I used to like sci-fi. Nowadays, the government intrigue is so deep, it beggars authors' imaginations. Much more this lowly reader. Folks, Idiocracy is a documentary.
All right, now on to the main event. This week's interview. Roll that tape. All right, we are joined now by Ryan Grimm.
Live via satellite.
Live via satellite from the top of the Ariana Huffington broadcast building and studios. Ryan Grimm joining us now to discuss the blockbuster piece of shoe leather reporting him and Lee Fang just turned in for the Intercept this week about the DCC and how DCCCC, the D-Trip. The D-Trip.
The D666 Mafia. Keep it Washington.
There's our episode title.
There we go. Ryan, before I ask you about that, I want to get into something that happened this week that's not in the article per se, but I think is largely related to what the article is getting at here. And that's basically where the Democrats stand now post this like government shutdown. They decided to back out of it. Some would say cave on reopening the government and like when this happened on Monday, the line was basically they did it to preserve S-chip, healthcare for children, and that this is just a ploy to get Mitch McConnell and the Republicans where they want them on a DACA vote. Then I think on Thursday, just yesterday, it came out that they would not be tying DACA or linking it to any future budget negotiations. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
So what is the line out of the Democratic leadership now? Like it going from this is a brilliant bit of negotiating to further capitulation on the very issue that this was supposed to be about.
I mean, the nice thing about this was that we're going to be able to get an answer within the next couple of weeks. And so part of the line that's coming from them is just wait. Like, we've got this. Like,
okay.
we're sitting down with Graham and, Durbin and he are going to come together on something, and we're going to pass it through the Senate, and then we're going to jam Paul Ryan in the Freedom Caucus, and we're going to force him to take it. And the beauty is that, within the next few weeks, you're going to know whether or not that's actually going to work. But, what you saw, I think, was all 2018 related. Democrats have these bunch of folks running in Trump states in 2018, and they started getting scared, and they saw their poll numbers dipping. And Chuck Schumer had designs on. It started out like Democrats like, well, let's see if we can not get annihilated in 2018. To whoa, if we really run the table here, we could actually take the Senate. And so anything that gets in the way of taking the Senate is going to have to take a back seat.
And by their lights, what's getting in the way of that is negative perception that they are shutting down the government because of to favor illegal immigrants, right?
Right. In states where you don't have a vocal population of dreamers.
Okay.
So, yeah, exactly.
So I guess wait and see is the line that we.
That's the best that they've got right now.
Okay.
Wait and see.
The Times reported that Joe Manchin was close to actually retiring instead of running for re-election this year, and the article implied heavily. I don't think they came out and said it that Schumer worked harder to end this shutdown because Manchin, as a moderate in the Problem Solvers Caucus, was very unhappy about it.
Yes, that sounds right. And he's a case where you can safely say that if he doesn't run, like, they're not winning that seat in 2018. Like, there are a lot of states where you can make an argument that there might be a progressive populist that could step in and rally and actually win a general election. There does not seem to be that possibility in West Virginia. And so they're looking at that and thinking, okay, well, we lose that seat. We lose West Virginia for like 2 generations.
Ryan, you're saying that, but is there any chance that they could perhaps get Don Blankenship to come over to the donkey side? If you give him just make him coal baron of America.
Schumer has impressive recruiting abilities, and he would fit the profile of the kind of successful businessman and job creator.
Self-funding,
There you go.
That's
and it doesn't cost much to self-fund an election in West Virginia.
Makes hard choices. Not afraid to get his hands dirty.
He does.
Not afraid to crack a few eggs.
Cuts through red tape.
He's big on criminal justice reform.
Yeah. He's firsthand experienced the excesses of the system.
Yep.
Don Attica Blankenship.
Yep. Future criminal justice reformer.
So this is how the Democrats are looking forward to 2018, which they are hoping on being a wave election, a backlash against Donald Trump. And I guess that's Schumer in that's his in the Senate. But I want to talk now about the piece that you and Lee wrote for the Intercept, which is really all about the House of Representatives and, as we said, the D666 Mafia and their plans for it. You open this piece with a group of activists in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, who. These are grassroots progressive activists who, after the 2016 election, came together and, as you quote in the piece, basically said that we don't want to ever get out-organized again in our own backyard. And they are coming together around these sort of core Democratic policy issues like preserving the ACA, and then also locally making sure that the state of Pennsylvania's House of Representatives is kept out of the hands of like Tea Party, Freedom Caucus yahoos. These people, they coalesced around a candidate named Jess King. Can you describe what happened after they've got a fair amount of momentum and indeed fundraising? What happened when Jess King sort of ran her proposed campaign up the flagpole to the bigwigs of the Democratic Party?
Yeah, not much is basically what happened. And I talked to a couple of people on the establishment side who ended up endorsing her opponent, and essentially they didn't really even know that Jess King was running. The party's just like, look, we endorsed this woman, Christina Hartman, in 2016. She's going to run again, so let's all endorse her again. And so, Jess King, she reaches out to Emily's List, for instance, and Emily's List, sends back a questionnaire. Are you pro-choice? Are you really pro-choice? Are you lying about being pro-choice? Are you sure you're pro-choice? She fills out her whole questionnaire, gets back to them, and that's kind of the end of that. And she finds out later that Emily's List is endorsing her opponent, who had gotten wiped out in the 2016 election. Same with most of the congressional delegation. Same with Ed Rendell. Same with Katie McGinty, who ran for Senate in 2016 and lost. Same with this group called End Citizens United, which was founded by three veterans of the DCCC and is ostensibly a campaign finance reform group, but they endorsed her opponent as well. So she rallied this like pretty huge grassroots support, and she hit the $100,000 mark pretty early, which is, for Washington, that's kind of a number that starts to get people interested. Like, oh, okay, this is somebody who has
like this
genuine
person
support.
raised with her sort of grassroots. They were able to raise $100,000 on her own, and like with her own people, without the help of Washington and the DCCC's like larger fundraising apparatus.
Like basically all small dollars and basically all local.
What can you tell us about the difference between Jess King as a candidate and Christina Hartman, the one that they ended up backing? I mean, you mentioned before, and I think it's an important one, Christina Hartman was already she had already lost before and underperformed Hillary Clinton in this district.
I'm still with her.
Yeah, Hartman was she was a consultant in Washington for a while, came back and was a consultant in Lancaster, or in the Lancaster region, and when she ran, she ran as kind of we're not the Republican. The Republican is terrible. He's gross. He's just like Donald Trump. Vote for us. And a very kind of unobjectionable Democratic platform. If you go through her website, or if you go through a questionnaire that she actually filled out for Lancaster Stands Up, it's a lot of things that sound like they are very progressive, and then you read kind of the questionnaire that Jess King submitted, and you're like, oh, that actually means something. Like, that's something I can disagree with. So, whereas the Christina Hartman approach is more like, I'm for more opportunity. I'm for more access. The kind of End Citizens United is actually a good example of that kind of rhetoric. It's like, yes, let's end Citizens United. And everybody wants to rally around the idea that you should get rid of Citizens United. It's a terrible court decision. But then you're like, well, actually, what does that mean? What do you mean end Citizens United? Like, how are we going to do that?
Just end Citizens United, dude.
And then what? What are we going to do after we end that? Because end Citizens United was just a couple years ago, and things were terrible before that too.
It's like how Hillary got Wall Street to cut out high frequency trading and everything. She just went down there and said, cut it out. She's going to march down to the Supreme Court and say, Citizens United, take a hike.
Now, End Citizens United, that was founded by a couple of consultants, right?
Right. It was a project. It was a PAC connected to this a consulting firm called Mothership Strategies, which is like,
come on. Oh, if we wrote a fucking show about these people, that would be called Two on the Nose. Yeah, it's called I'm a Little Baby, Nurse Me Super PAC.
yeah.
Ryan, there's from the art. I want to read from the article something that Jess Kim said about her own campaign.
I didn't finish. I didn't really answer your question. Sorry about that.
No, go ahead.
But her whole strategy was the Clinton strategy, the Ed Rendell strategy of, okay, we're going to lose some working class votes, but we're going to peel Republicans out of the suburbs.
Exactly. And I want to read from
Jess King's strategy is the opposite.
Yeah.
She's like, we're going to go win those working class people. We're going to bring our base out. We're going to bring the Hispanic vote out, and we're going to bring more voters to the polls than they bring to the polls.
Exactly.
You know, the only group that ever accomplished that, we're going to lose working class and pick up suburban people, and it paid off, was G Unit in the early 2000s. This is the only time it's ever been done successfully.
Ryan, you write here, as Jess says of her own campaign, she said, you're right. She planned to focus a populist progressive campaign on canvassing and harnessing grassroots enthusiasm. Here's the key part. If suburban Republicans came along, attracted by the promise of Medicare for all or tuition-free public college, then great. But they would not be King's target. Mm-hmm. We have lambasted, we have made fun of this line that came out of the 2016 election that for every one white working class vote we lose, we'll pick up 2 in the Pennsylvania and the Philadelphia suburbs. And like this is the real like ongoing test case for that already losing strategy, which they're doubling down on again going into 2018.
Yeah, what's so wild is that she underperformed Hillary Clinton. Let's say that Hartman in 2016, in a tough year or whatever for Democrats in Pennsylvania, came really close to winning and overperformed Hillary Clinton. Then if you're the DCCC, you can say, okay, well, she was really good. She outperformed our national candidate. Let's give her another shot. But there were people who went into the ballot box and were like, yes, I'm voting for Hillary Clinton. And then like looked down at the next one and they're like, no, I'm not voting for her. I'm voting for the guy's name is Smucker. Like her opponent. I'm going to vote for Smucker instead. So to underperform Hillary and then to immediately rack up all of the establishment endorsements when you jump into the race again doesn't show a whole lot of reflection about the strategy that objectively collapsed in Pennsylvania.
Ryan, this is a kind of a tangent here, but you quote Ed Rendell saying that in the piece. And I know Schumer also said that in 2016. Was that a talking point that the Hillary campaign distributed to surrogates to defend their shitty strategy?
Yeah, it certainly became a talking point. Yes. Yeah. So a couple of them, we quoted Ed Rendell, obviously, because he's kind of still the boss of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party. But yeah, it was like, that was it. We're going to, yes, it's true. We're going to lose, Bubba over here. But we're going to, pick up a couple ladies out here near the Panera.
You mentioned at the end of this opening story about Lancaster, Pennsylvania, you say, you write, in mid-October, the DCCC hosted a candidate week in Washington, bringing in Democrats running for the House around the country for training and networking. Hartman was invited, King was not. As part of the candidate gathering, an off-the-record happy hour with national reporters was hosted by the DCCC in the, quote, Wasserman Room at the Democratic National Headquarters.
Yo, I bet you...
there's no fighting in the Wasserman Room.
I bet you D-Trip Week is like Olympic Village. It's just fuck city.
Nah, dude. Yeah,
like
dude, it's all...
fish bowls full of condoms.
It's All-Star Weekend. Like Cardi B says, lobbyists don't get cold.
It's like their big elaborate party room right when you walk in the DNC. It's literally called the Wasserman Room.
The DNC, their party room is named after Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And this is the party they're
21.
doing to recruit their new candidates. I mean, again, it's just like you get to the end of this article and you're like,
2016 that they had this happy hour in the Wasserman Room.
the washing machine room.
Popping bottles in the washing machine room. People hating on the outside because they can't get in.
Problem solving in the Wasserman Room.
No, there are times in journalism where you just have to be grateful. For the,
I mean, I think this article really becomes about like the overall culture of the Democratic Party and like efforts and like there's slight indications that there may be shifting in one way, but then you think that there's a party room named after Debbie Washing Machine Schultz.
Right.
And the mind begins to balk. I want to get to the next thing. Probably like this is the thing that was.
We should. Well, maybe it'll become a. The next DNC chair will have to have an actual position on the name of the Wasserman Room. Because I think Perez is probably comfy with Wasserman Room. The
Perez posse.
Room.
Oh yeah. Tom Perez scene in Viper Lounge with Lana Del Rey.
Moving on from like the Lancaster, Pennsylvania example, I want to go now to the thing which I think has been like the sort of the stinger that has been most shared out of this article. Can you describe for us what the Rolodex test is? Who administers it and what is it?
So it's, let's say that you are, thinking about running for Congress, or you are running for Congress, and you obviously want the DCCC's support. They've got money, they've got big email lists, they've got lists of lots of rich people who are looking to give to people that the party says they should give to. So you want to impress them. So you sit down with somebody from the DCCC, and the most rudimentary version of this is to take your phone out and scroll through your contacts and say, okay, this guy, he worked at the law firm where I used to work. I'm sure he'd host me a fundraiser. I bet he'd be good for $5,400 himself, plus he could do a fundraiser for 30. You're like, okay, we're at about 35,000. So you go through your Rolodex, you go through your contact list, and you kind of add up what you can shake out of that. And if you it depends on the district. It's a lot more expensive to run in New Jersey than it is to run in West Virginia. But then if the number is an impressive one, then all right, let's talk. If you go through your phone and you're like, maybe I've got $5,000 out of here, they're like, thanks for coming by. We don't validate.
All right, let me see here. Rachel Millman, I think she's good for 10 grand. Felix, can I have $10,000?
Yeah, okay. Just get it back whenever.
I'm going through my contacts right now, Ryan, and all I see is 3 different drug dealers I knew in college, all named White Mike.
Well,
they can only give once. Just because they're in there 3 times does not mean they can give to you.
I think we can rely heavily on the White Mike lobby to come out for support.
Well, as a good boy, the first 10 names in my contact book are different numbers I can reach my mom at. And she'll always give me $10,000. See you boys in the Senate.
That's how the show got started.
Exactly.
For people who don't know,
yeah.
That was where we got the seed
Mom,
money.
can I have a media career?
But
I mean, that actually is a favored way of funding a campaign. Patrick Murphy's daddy put about $1 million into his Senate campaign, and that was the reason that the DSCC just endorsed him over Alan Grayson what was that, 2014 or 2016? So actually, rich parents, that ends the phone test right there. You can put the phone back in your pocket.
That's the best way to do anything that your mom lets you do it. Just get permission from your mom. You can do anything. The world's your oyster.
Catherine Harris's dad died so that she could be a senator.
That's beautiful.
Quite a gift.
Now, obviously, money talks and bullshit walks, and politics is a prime example of that. You need money to run a campaign, and you mentioned it's more expensive to do that in certain parts of the country than others. I want to talk now about the example that you use from Minnesota, and just how, while it seems like on the surface, obviously the DCCC, they're no dummies. They know that you need money to win, and having money equals a viable candidate, and they want to support viable candidates, right? Yeah. At the same time, this Rolodex test does favor a certain kind of candidate that has increasingly become more and more distant from the issues and beliefs of the base of the party. And could you talk a little bit about the case of Angie Craig and Jeff Erdmann? Yeah,
so and Jeff Erdmann, and I don't think I got to put a whole lot about him in the story, but he's been an American government teacher in the state for 27 years, and I think a varsity football coach for almost as long.
It's like Friday Night Lights guy.
Yeah, twice he was the Minnesota varsity football coach of the year, and he, in order to run, he went down to 80% so that he could get out of school a little bit earlier after the football season ended and go out campaigning and try trying to get his thing off the ground. He did 80% because he has to keep there to keep his health insurance. And his wife, who's a speech therapist, took a second job, so that he could go down to 80%. He's kind of a charismatic guy, as you would imagine from a varsity football coach of the year. Yeah, he volunteered for Angie Craig in 2016 and came away kind of disaffected watching her campaign. And so that's why he decided to jump into the race.
That's an interesting bio. That's the brainy jock type. He's in the locker room talking about checks and balances and shit.
Yes, and he, because he's an American government teacher, he's very idealistic about the process and public financing of campaigns, and he's also kind of a down the line Bernie Democrat, like Medicare for all, free college, the whole slew. And he thinks that district in Minnesota is ready for it. He doesn't buy this will turn off the rural voters. When he was phone banking for Angie Craig, this is one of the things that drove him to run himself. He said the script was written, for kind of the metropolitan voter. And he said, well, what if I get a rural person on the phone? And he said the supervisor said to him, they're not deep thinkers out there. Just tell them the trailer park story. Because Angie Craig grew up in a mobile home, had a real humble upbringing somewhere in Minnesota. And he's like, just tell them the trailer park story. The second thing that drove him was somebody asked him a question at the door. He didn't know the answer to it. So when he got a chance to talk to Angie in a Q&A, he said, what do we do about that? Should we direct them to the website or what? And she said, no, don't do that yet. We haven't built out the website yet because we don't want to put our positions up there so that the Republicans don't know where we stand. So because then they'll start attacking us for it. And besides, we haven't done our end of summer polling yet. So no, don't necessarily do that. Just, hand them the literature and move on. And he was like, there's just no way. And he thinks that not only is that the wrong way to run a campaign, but he thought that was part of the reason she lost. And she badly underperformed too. And not only did she underperform Hillary Clinton in Minnesota, she got fewer votes than the state house and the state Senate candidates. So of everybody on the ballot, she lost to literally everybody there. So people, there were probably 30,000 people that went into the ballot and just did not vote for either her or her opponent. They were there. They took the trouble of driving their asses all the way to the polls and just didn't vote for her.
So what you're saying is the trailer park story didn't work on the rubes.
Maybe they didn't tell it to enough people. I don't know.
I mean, again, what you're describing is a pattern of the favoring of candidates who have business connections, good contacts, but essentially run a campaign that, to the extent that it has a message, is not one that resonates with anyone or is pitched to basically moderate Republicans, and everyone else would be completely... Like, the lack of enthusiasm here is startling because it portrays like a fundamental lack of not only ability, but just interest to talk about politics in a way that connects with people's lives. As you said, like, oh, well, we can't actually tell people what we believe. The Republicans will attack us for it.
Yeah, why even run in that place? If the Republicans know that we're going to be on the ballot, they're just going to do the same thing. They'll get on it too. We have to be one step ahead of them. It's not even like a campaign. I mean, people have talked about like cynical Democratic Party machines, but if only it could be that. This isn't even that. This is like fucking Amway. It literally is. You're getting a bunch of fucking losers who got sick of staring out the window of their corner office because they saw one of those Instagram memes, of the photogenic girl doing yoga that was like, make it so that the world is your office. And they're like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then they go in with the only skills they have, which is looking in their phone book and asking people for money. It's like Mary Kay for people who sold missiles to the Saudis.
I got an idea. Yeah. What if D-Trip goes out and recruits all of those guys who have Twitter accounts that post success win mindset memes, and all those like pictures, those like stock photos of guys in tailored suits standing on boats and shit.
Yeah. Oh, people are always like, oh, let's get rid of Citizens United. Let's do that. No, let's get rid of the provision that says senators have to be natural born citizens, because then we get Michael Hudson's boys Salar, Saman, all the princes of Persia.
They would clean up. Could you
They would
imagine them
destroy.
meeting Tom Perez? He would
Yeah.
be over the moon.
Just weirdly lip syncing to Persian pop songs.
Sorry, hold on a sec. Ryan, are you familiar with the princes of Persia, the Persian bodybuilders and muscle men?
I'm not.
There's a little bit of reporting that we've done.
It's the most exciting new progressive group on the ground right now.
I'm gonna get to Googling as soon as I get off here. The other reason I picked her to highlight, Lee and I picked her to highlight, is End Citizens United endorsed her as well, and it turns out that she was on the board of the medical device company PAC, where she worked for 8 years, and was actually the director of the corporate PAC in 2012, and from that perch, sent tons of money to Republicans in the House and Senate in an effort to repeal the medical device tax, which is one of the underpinnings of the revenue side of Obamacare. And, so it's a little unusual that the Campaign Finance Reform Group would pick her. But when I asked the DCCC, like, did this bother you that this was what she was doing, shortly before she was running as a Democrat? They said, how can you suggest that she's part of the establishment? She's a lesbian who's raising a family.
Flawless.
And I didn't say that. I didn't even say she was part of the establishment, actually. All I said was, she was directing a corporate PAC that was funneling tens of thousands of dollars to Republicans in the House and Senate.
Ryan, hold on. One of the sort of things that comes up early on that you mentioned already is Emily's List, which is a big group that's like the big pro-choice group. And I remember back during the campaign, there was a big row when Bernie Sanders described Planned Parenthood as the establishment. Like, why did Planned Parenthood endorse Hillary Clinton? And I think he said something to the effect of, well, they're the Democratic establishment. And people got very angry at that. But they are objectively, groups like Emily's List and Planned Parenthood are the Democratic establishment, or a large part of it.
Right. The difference, of course, between Planned Parenthood and Emily's List, Planned Parenthood actually does things.
Yeah.
They actually have a grassroots operation that actually helps people. But Emily's List absolutely is part of the establishment now. And yeah, like I said, they endorsed Christina Hartman over Jess King, even though both of them are pro-choice. They have not endorsed Kara Eastman, who's a pro-choice woman running against an anti-choice man, Brad Ashford, in Nebraska. They have not endorsed Marie Newman, who's a pro-choice woman running against an anti-choice man in Illinois. He's a sitting congressman, so that may be why they're shying away from that. They have not endorsed Lupe Lopez, who's running for governor against an anti-choice man in Texas. So they've jumped into a bunch of competitive primaries between women while staying out of competitive primaries between a woman and a man when the man is even anti-choice.
Back to Angie Craig. She may have been on the super PAC of a medical device company, but come on, if you're an executive at a company that sells medical devices, reforming healthcare to the benefit of the American patient is at the top of your priorities. Let's be honest here. You have a hands-on experience.
I think that's a plus. People like their medical devices. I have this vape, and that's basically a medical device. It keeps me alive.
I love my lifting belt.
Back to Erdmann, though. Jeff Erdmann, you described this guy. You mentioned his bio before. If you were like a hotshot campaign manager for the Democrats, wouldn't you be dying to get your hands on this guy?
He's a big bear of a man.
Yeah, yes, and there are a lot of these people that are like this, that are sort of like a consultant's dream if you're looking for, the kind of person that can resonate. They just don't have a whole lot of money. Another one that I wrote about who doesn't have any money, this woman, Karen Mallard, who met with Emily's List and was about to get their endorsement. But then Emily's List learned that D-Trip was going to go a different direction. And so Emily's List had to go a different direction. But she became a teacher because her father, who was a coal miner, she discovered was illiterate. And so as a child, she taught him how to read, and that gave her a love of teaching. And so she became a teacher. She learned her politics standing on a picket line with her grandfather, who was a coal miner. And this is born and raised in this Southern Virginia district, and she can't get the D trip to return her phone calls.
Talking about money there, how much money is D-Trip looking for? Because in my mind, raising 100, 200,000 from a large number of small donors in an off year is impressive. And that would have been something that would turn heads, say, 10 years ago, right?
So the other thing that they look for is, and the D-Trip will say, our cooperation is a two-way street. So they want, and I think that this played a role in the Jess King situation. They want regular conference calls. They want access. They've put this down in memos. They want access to your budget. They want you to commit to spending 75% of your budget on television ads, and they'll give you a list of consultants who will place those television ads for you. So they have a style of campaign that they want you to run, and they call that two-way communication. And so it's not just money; it's also what you're going to do with the money. And my sense, and I didn't get this from the King campaign, but this is the sense that I got, is that they were like, no, like we're running a field campaign. Like we have whatever thousands of volunteers signed up. We've got small donors. We're not gonna go heavy on the consultants and the television ads. We think that there's another way to win this, and so that means that the money, raising $100,000, isn't quite enough, because it's not just money; it's what you're going to do with it. But in general, if you raise $100,000 and you tell the DCCC, yes, we'll hire those consultants and we'll run this kind of campaign, that definitely has you in their sights.
That's amazing that's their doctrine, because television advertising has one of the lowest rates of return of any other kind of campaign expenditure. Like Field is a great example. I mean, in terms of...
It's not just... to be fair, they don't say just TV ads. They say 75% of paid messaging. So, but that's almost all television ads as far as they're concerned.
Why would they like TV? There's commissions for firms when you buy TV ads. They cost more. There's more money kicking around the same incestuous whirlpool. It's the same. It's the same pyramid scheme type shit.
And TV is fun. I mean, Rick and Morty's on TV.
Oh yeah, you can hang out with all your friends like Malcolm in the Middle.
They should advertise on Rick and Morty. That would be a good campaign strategy, because that audience is very engaged. They know a lot,
and you just you have to have a high IQ to understand these policies.
That'll be, I'm a smart candidate. I'm the brainy candidate.
That won't resonate with the trailer park crowd, though. They're not intelligent enough.
Here's what you do: run ads during Trailer Park Boys.
Oh,
okay,
now
that's
you're
Canada,
talking. Now
though.
you're talking.
That's a problem. Those aren't American voters.
Okay. You run ads during Spike TV. Well, now Paramount Network flagship. The Boner Scientist.
During the XFL when that comes back.
Oh yeah.
That'll be a good one. Ryan, in addition to this two-way street that the D-Trip talks about, in addition to they want you to hire, consultants, and they want you to hire their consultants, and they want you to spend this money on TV. Also, this year, they're very keen to avoid certain pitfalls of the 2016 Democratic primary. And you reference a memo that was obtained by the Young Turks, which asked their candidates to take a series of pledges, which amount to, I will not badmouth the leadership of the Democratic Party or its political priorities.
Yeah. The funny one was, I will not do anything that will cost the party the election, the general election. And it's like, well, speaking of two-way streets, maybe the Democratic Party should not be pushing candidates who are going to then lose the general election. Like if this is something that everybody's going to agree to. But yeah, it says we will focus on our shared values as Democrats opposing Republicans. In other words, don't say that your opponent is a sellout or is not as good on healthcare or is not as good on Wall Street, or that you have a better position than them. Just focus on the fact that you both disagree with Republicans on everything.
How do you run that campaign then?
Well, you don't.
Yeah,
I mean, you lose, because that's and
the system.
The
works.
only way for these lefty candidates to win is to create the distinction and to let voters know, like, there's a choice here. I'm the more progressive one. I have the backing of Justice Democrats, our revolution, move on, whatever elements of that constellation show that, okay, I'm the proxy for the left here, because the Democratic voters would vote for that person, and the DCCC knows that if it's a straight up and down, here's what this person actually believes, here's what this person actually believes, the Democratic voting base is going to go to the left every single time, and that's what scares them because they think that candidate's not going to win the general election. I mean, that's the best light to put that argument in.
Can you talk a little bit? Rahm Emanuel is a figure that comes up in this. He was in charge of the DCCC for a while. What was the role that he played in being in setting up a lot of this sort of template that we're now seeing this pattern that emerges throughout this article and all of these races and candidates that you guys profile? Could you talk about Rahm's role in this?
Yeah, he kind of institutionalized what had been a trend at the DCCC already, which is that the ideal candidate is somebody who served in the military, owns a business, and is wealthy, and has a lot of wealthy friends, and so can self-fund a campaign, and is centrist to conservative, so can appeal to the white working class or whoever they think that they're going to peel off. This was 2006.
That strategy worked for them in 2006, didn't it?
Mike Podhorzer, who worked on that election for the AFL-CIO, I thought put it well. He said something like Rahm Emanuel, had the wrong strategy at the right time. He said it a little bit better than that, but there was a wave, and when you have a wave, you're going to win. You're going to get washed in, and so whoever he had put up was probably going to win. And we know because at least 3 candidates who Rahm thought were the best ones to win in the general election actually lost in 2006 to grassroots candidates, and Rahm wrote them all off and said, "Okay, now we're going to lose now we're going to lose that district." And in 2 of the cases they won, and in one of them they almost won. And so it shows that there's really not an omniscience from Mr. Emanuel.
But you also talk like that this idea of wave elections are also sort of fool's gold if you're going on this strategy, because a lot of these candidates, they got in and then they lost almost immediately in the next cycle.
Right. And so I actually think, and Podhorzer made this point, and I agree with him, that people should be thinking differently about forming governing majorities. You're not when you have inequality that's this high, when you have dissatisfaction this intense among the public, you're going to have waves all the time. People are just going to be pissed at whoever's in power. So your objective should not be to create some type of permanent majority, but create a progressive majority that when it gets in, immediately puts in place some big popular policies, and then you're probably going to get wiped out. But if they're popular, Republicans are not going to be able to wipe them out. And I think that's exactly what Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell decided. They're like, we're about to lose the House. Give me them tax cuts. And thinking that, okay, we'll lose, but Democrats aren't going to be able to come in and reverse those tax cuts. At least, let's say they did $6 trillion in tax cuts. Let's say Democrats can chip away at $2 trillion of it. They still walked away with $4 trillion. It's a pretty good haul for 2 years.
Yeah, and I mean, also the ability to point to something in the past. I mean, everyone always points to Obama's high personal approval ratings, and the fact is, yes, people liked him a lot, especially when they saw him next to Trump. But that doesn't really mean anything as far as wave elections, as far as midterm elections, because people are not going to vote on the cultural signifiers and cultural identity of the Democratic Party that sort of stopped being able to accomplish big things that people remembered after 2009, and instead a sense of norms. And yeah, that can be appealing in what this year will be, a wave year, but when they get in there, and if they continue to not really pull off anything big, like say maybe they do an earned income tax credit here, or they have some voucher for healthcare there, nothing that big that a mass electorate can point to, they're going to get wiped out again, and they won't have anything that the Republicans will have trouble taking a hatchet to. I mean, we've seen all the incremental changes that were made during the Obama years have just been completely wiped out in under a year of the Trump presidency.
Yeah, and it's even possible they could come in and let's say they come in, they do Medicare for all, they do free public college, they could still get wiped out. Like that's totally possible. But those gains that were made are going to be very hard to undo. Like you want to be the Republican that reverses, free school or takes away, health care from somebody. This year showed even a bill as unpopular as Obamacare has been extremely difficult for them to even chip away at. They were able to like whack out some of the least popular parts of it, the taxes and the mandate. But the gains are staying. And so even if you lose, so it's thinking about like, let's think about politics as a means toward making people's lives better, rather than as a means toward, permanent majorities in the House and Senate.
Yeah, I mean, I got into sort of a argument with a former Obama person about Obamacare versus the NHS, and they said, well, don't you think that a Republican would just completely dismantle a single payer system? But what I said was, look at the NHS. You had Margaret Thatcher in there, who is more of a steely-eyed ideologue than Donald Trump ever could be, and actually had this Paul Ryan-esque investment in austerity as a belief. And she couldn't even get rid of it. And yeah, it's taken huge hits from Tories and from New Labor, but it's still so beloved there. It's still such a tangible thing that now Corbyn is able to sort of run on putting money back into the NHS. And I don't really see any comparable electoral ploy you can do with Obamacare.
Ryan, you mentioned no one wants to be the Republican that comes in and takes away people's free healthcare and education. And that may be true, but sometimes politics just is about doing what's right, not what's popular.
Ryan, there was something you pointed out in the article that I had never known before, and it was about the House Financial Committee, and that the leadership stacks that committee with vulnerable freshmen from swing districts because that's where the money is, and that ends up preventing any kind of large changes that to the banking industry that would be unfavorable to those donors.
Yeah, and in 2009, Pelosi even expanded the size of it. I think there were 72 members of the Financial Services Committee in 2009. I mean, that's not a committee anymore. That's bigger than some legislatures. And you're exactly right. The reason is, you call every banker in New York and say, hey, I'm, Congressman so-and-so, I am a member of the Financial Services Committee, here are my account details. And so they just rack up the contributions. And because they're from swing states and because they've been the product of the DCCC, let's get business-friendly centrists in there, those are conservative members. And so they're the ones that are, voting down progressive legislation. The best example I've seen play out live was when there was an attempt to make auto dealers part of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And my God, can you think of a business that is more in need of consumer protections than the auto dealers? Democrats are all in favor of this as the vote is going on. The freshmen and the sophomores sit down in what they call the bottom two rows. And so it gets down to the bottom two rows and they start, the freshmen and the sophomores start voting no on this. And so it becomes clear that this thing's going down and auto dealers are not going to be part of this. So now all of these Democrats who had voted for it say, wait, how am I recorded on that vote? You're recorded as a yes. I meant to vote no. So they all changed their votes to no, because if the thing's not going to pass, you might as well vote with the industry so that you can go hit them up. And so it shows that a single member is not just a static guy sitting in the legislature. They have a dynamic effect on how these votes go. And so if you just looked at the vote, it was a landslide, but it actually would have been quite close. And if it weren't for these conservatives that they stuffed on this panel so that they could raise money from the banks, it would have passed. And now you see all of these shady lending products popping out of these car dealerships.
And it's that's staggering to me how short-sighted that strategy is. That if our emphasis is just to have so much money that we're going to outspend our opponents in the next election, but we'll do that at the expense of passing legislation that would either be popular or would actually create some institutional cushion, such as card check or expanding voting rights or statehood for Puerto Rico or something like that, that would actually maintain our majority.
Right. Yeah. If you're playing the money game with the Republicans, that's a long-term loser. That's
but
for
there's
sure.
a limit. I mean, there's a limit to how much impact spending is going to have. I mean, Hillary outspent Donald Trump 2-1. It didn't matter.
Right. No, that's right. And if you see victories by people like Jess King in these primaries, then you're going to see a significant portion of the kind of establishment wing of the party saying, "Oh wait, actually, there's money in this, and there's winning in this." You could paradoxically come out of Citizens United with a party that is hugely funded by small dollars. If all of these state house and state senate candidates that are running around the country build up their grassroots networks and they rise through the ranks, you could genuinely have a small dollar funded party, or at least like a big enough portion of the party that it becomes the kind of dominant partner in a coalition against a party that's funded by 1 or 2 billionaires. That's a possible outcome.
Yeah, but the party is still going to be as strong as its weakest member, and if you still have people like Joe Manchin holding the balance of power and calling the shots, you're going to be married to whatever his policy priorities are.
Right. So you have to keep elevating that weakest member. But that's very true.
I mean, there isn't, there's D-Trip, which for the most part calls the shots because all of the organizations like Emily's List will follow their lead. But you don't really have anything comparable right now on the left. You just have this kind of diffuse power among a lot of these grassroots groups like P-Trip or the DFA, Justice Democrats now.
Right. And there's no, like the right now has the NRA. Like, so that their function now is to basically anoint the real conservative in the race. Like, it's not even about guns. It's like this is, and so if you're a Republican and you want to know who to vote for and you want the most conservative guy, you vote for the NRA endorsed candidate. And there really isn't anything like that on the left. And I think part of that is that it's because the left is a coalition of, a bunch of different interest groups, whereas, the right is white people. So that makes it harder, but it does seem like that's something that's needed.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity there.
Ryan, I'm curious. This article has gotten a lot of burning. I'm curious. What, if any, response have you gotten from the D-Trip or its surrogates and defenders in the media? Have you gotten any pushback on this article?
Not a ton. I think they're taking their medicine. I had, they were pretty well prepped for what was coming, and so it probably makes the blow a little easier to take. They had a few quibbles here and there, but nothing, to the heart of it.
I mean, one of the lines
they certainly didn't like it. I'll say that. But I think it's kind of a necessary conversation, and maybe eventually they'll even recognize that.
One of the lines that I heard, that I read today was this idea that this is the Intercept, they hate Democrats or whatever. They're trying to tell you that the Democrats are so incompetent that they lost an election to Donald Trump, but are also so ruthless and efficient that you can't win a primary against them. Do you think there's any validity?
That's not what we said. And I actually think that.
Really?
I actually think that some of these candidates are going to win, and we're going to follow their races closely. And we don't I don't hate the Democratic Party. I don't feel one way or the other about it. It is a fact that they are endorsing, in a lot of cases, these establishment candidates. But I don't think that means they're going to win. So I don't actually think they're omnipotent. I think they're going to find out that they screwed up some of their own House races. I think there's a good chance Jess King wins, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, you quoted someone who alluded to brainless 26-year-olds running the party in Washington. So who is this class of people? I mean, have you met any of these people making these strategic decisions?
Well, the editor of the piece was 26, and she has the person quoted actually apologized on Twitter to all 26-year-olds for that. But it's the kind of folks who they've probably worked on some state house campaigns, maybe some state senate campaigns, local stuff. Like they probably ran for, class president, or ran somebody's campaign for class president, which is even stranger.
God, think of that.
But they've just always been into politics as for the sport of it. And they, not to say that they don't believe in what they're saying, but like they love the hand-to-hand combat of politics, and so they want to rise up through the Democratic Party ranks, and so they win a couple local races, and then wind up being Midwest political director for DCCC, or Southern political director, and then from there you go on and generally you become a consultant, and you take on clients who are these candidates, and that's where you make the money, because you have to make the money because for a year you're unemployed, but then the year that you're making money, you're making a lot of money because you're selling the same product to like 10 or 20 different candidates, because you're basically telling them all to run the same campaign. And the retainers, you can check out FEC reports, the retainers are pretty sweet. Like, if you're making $5,000 a month and you've got 10 of those, you're doing all right.
I guess just to wrap things up, I mean, what you have here, I think, is like the D-Triple people will say, we're doing like we want Democrats to win, and their fear is always that the general electorate is more right-wing than the Democratic primary, right? However, I really think reading this article, it's hard to come away from it, at least for me, with the impression that at the leadership of the Democratic Party would rather lose with moderates than win with candidates that create an expectation that they have to deliver on popular or left-leaning policy goals. Or to put it another way, their power within the institution of the Democratic Party is more important than the overall power of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, if you do it the way that it's been done before and you lose, it's not your fault. It was just a bad year. If you try something new and you lose, it's your fault. You should have done it the way we did it last time. So I do think there's a lot of aversion there that plays out.
That reminds me of some of the lessons you get from the Dilbert books about the stupid boss.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
In closing, our message to anyone who hears this is go out there, change the system, run for something. If you are legally engendered from running for city council or state legislature, enroll in a high school. Run for student body president. It doesn't matter if they arrest you. You have a constitutional right to be in that high school. Run for middle school president. Run for a kindergarten student government class. They can't. The Democrats don't have their hands in there. We start this change from the bottom up. Let's do it. I believe in you. I love you.
What if the neighborhood association be one of those assholes like gives out fake tickets because people don't clip their lawns enough?
Yeah, be the guy who assaults Rand Paul again. Do it. Just do it. Run for an election between you and your friends. Have a falling out over it. Hate them. Create a blood feud against them. Cut their brakes. Go to prison. Get elected in there.
Check out Dogbert's Guide to Politics. There's some advice there.
Watch a Scott Adams live stream.
Ryan Grimm, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Ryan Grimm and Lee Fang, the article is at the Intercept. We will be linking to it in the show description. Ryan, once again, thank you so much for joining us.
All right, take it easy, guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
Cheers.
Bye, Ryan.
All right. That was Ryan Grimm. That's our show for the week.
Hope you enjoyed Ryan Grimm's fairy tale.
Oh, and in case you hadn't figured it out already, Amber and Matt are still furloughed.
That's right. Matt is, I think in this leg of his trip, he's in Germany, where he has told me he's found the only music he's ever liked. DJ Winkerbean, the funky noise. This is only the first song he's ever loved. All the kinds of music they have in Germany, which is just a big fat man with rosacea and a blonde crew cut, like spinning turntables very slowly and going that funky beat. The German national anthem.
Matt is hanging out with with Kim.com right now.
Yeah, Matt and Kim.com are doing an EDM rap song.
Amber's whereabouts still unknown.
Who knows where she is? She could be in the Admiralty. She could be in Circadia City.
Centralia City,
anywhere.
She could be facing down a cyber axe gang.
Yeah. Amber.
In the deepest sewer.
God, like before she left, I said, Amber, bring your cyber blade. And she's like, oh, I can get one at the airport.
I'm going to a city where gun technology has been developed. And we were like, no, you're wrong.
They're like,
you'll need the blade.
Amber, did you do Admiralty pre-check? She's like, I don't need that. I just get to the cyber dock early. And it's like, no, that's never enough.
Always gets your total recall at least an hour before your memories are implanted, folks. Come on. Till next time, guys.
Hasta la pronto.
See ya. Bye. See ya. Bye. See ya. Bye. See ya. Bye. See ya. Bye.